Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are here. We are here. Welcome to another edition, to another installment of Hashtag Fade to Black. I am your host, Don Elamonte Morris. Welcome to another journey that you're about to take here with my panel, Beast Johnson, Seep Away, and as well as our special guest, Prince, Ambassador Prince Michael. I'm going to get that right. I apologize. Chief.
Ambassador Michael.
So she's also going to be on the show, but right now she's trying to get her guests to help her guests out to come on the show to talk about voting. Before we jump into voting, I got something I need to show to the panel. So I was talking to y'all before the show started about a little surprise that I had for y'all. It was something that I just made that was no longer than freaking 50 seconds. And I want to see what y'all think about it. Y'all ready?
All right.
Here we go.
I'm intrigued.
Wow.
Nice.
So even though this is like a nice album cover,
I ain't gonna lie. I was thinking that myself. I was like, well, I got a shitload of writing to do.
Yeah. So I found this new template. I was like, let me see what I can do with this. And I was in, I just can't put our names and just put, our show logo right there. I was like, no, it gotta have a title. It has to have a title. And then I just thought about Passenger 57, that
Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. And then he said, always better black. And I was like, yo, I'm going to use that. Then I was like, look at what we've been going through all this year. And I was like, there you go. Always bet on black 2020. I said, let's make it a tour thing. So I said, I think everybody would get a kick out of it. I think B. Johnson probably would like it the most. So yeah, that's a little surprise.
I do.
Well done.
I do.
Well done.
I'm definitely feeling like Flavor Flav, the hype man on stage right now.
Yeah. So I had to. I was like, I had to show him this. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump into the opening statement. So, Ambassador Michael, Prince Michael. So with the opening statements, we all get our chance to, either talk about the current topic of the show or something you just want to get off our chest. So since you are our host, our guest host, you, sir, have the floor. And I also changed up the captions as well. So here we go. And I'm sorry, Ambassador, you got your mic's shut off.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Okay, boom. So
Yes,
opening statements, he said I can say what's on my mind. So I will say I'm glad to be alive. I'm glad to be black. I'm glad to be, here with you guys on this show and this great panel. Thank you for the invitation, Brother Sipiwe. Right now, it's all about emergency. What's on my mind is the state of emergency that we're in. I'm thinking about like how every other country in the world, 2020, we witnessed literally every country in the world declare state of emergency. They declared emergency. They enacted emergency response plans. Companies and of course, here in America, people pulled down all kinds of funding and just got uber rich, super rich. Through this crisis, they leveraged Henry Kissinger's advice, who said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And I'm thinking everybody is declaring state of emergency except for black people. Like we're the only ones, and I'm just looking at us as black Americans here. Black Americans, we have not declared state of emergency. Some of us have. But as a comprehensive collective, we have not enacted any emergency response plan officially. And of course we understand this because we have not yet declared ourselves as a unified front, as a unified body or group of people, like Brother Sipiwe has been, trying to help foster that since, almost 2 decades now. And so that's what's on my mind is just state of emergency, and let's give our people platforms and reasons to actually utilize or position themselves on the international stage, or as a qualified body that can declare state of emergency and begin to enact emergency response plans such as elections. Black elections. We need an election to designate full powers to representatives that can officially sign treaties, sign contracts on our behalf as a people, and let's finally reposition ourselves and level up onto the international stage, so that way we can engage and take care of our affairs the same way every other country, literally every other community of people on the planet are doing right now. So that's what's on my
mind. Well, thank you, Ambassador. That was very passionate. And I'm kind of just like piggyback off of what you're saying, because mine opening statement is more in line musically. I'm thinking about the movie Jason's Lyrics. More specifically, I'm thinking about the song You Will Know, done by Black Men United, which was not a group, but merely every Black male vocalist in the industry during that time. Solo, groups, whatever you may be. All of these gentlemen got together and sang one of the most beautifulest songs you will ever fucking hear, with so much soul. And everybody with a name got to get their rocks off in that song. Nobody was overshadowed, but everybody was exposed. And thinking about songs like that, as well as like We Are the World, we as a people, we as Black people more specifically, we need to adapt that mentality. We need to come together. We need to put all our bullshit pride and ego to the side, knowing that the common goal will be achieved. I do my part. I work with who I need to work with, and the dream will be achieved. And in that process, I'll get whatever little immediate gratification I desire. I'll get that. I'll get that shine. So there's no need for me to worry about it. It's going to happen. The main goal is to come together and to achieve this dream. When he talks about, voting new legislation, I take it a step further. For the already established Black associations and organizations that we have, like the NAACP, we should have a national election to elect those individuals, because they're already perceived as the individuals that are supposed to speak on behalf of Blacks. But let's be honest, nobody really knows who they are, and nobody even knows when and if and how they came about coming into that position. So I say that's the first step we take to move in that path. Start by having a national election for the NAACP, having local and state elections for the NAACP. You should know who your representatives are for NAACP, just like you know of who your representatives are in your local city government. You shouldn't know who is running your local branch by when somebody gets shot, when there's a Black issue and that individual speaks on TV, and now you know, oh, he's supposed to be the person, or she's supposed to be the person. No, you shouldn't have known that before they were elected and put into that position. So let's come together. Let's put the bullshit to the side, and let's achieve the dream that we all want and we're all striving to do right now. It'd be a lot easier if we just work together. More hands make less work. That's my opening statement.
So for my opening statement, I want to welcome Ambassador Prince Michael. I'm glad he could make it to the show. And I'm really hoping that the other guest is going to be able to make it to the show, because I was really looking forward to having a discussion with someone involved in as an election official, as an attorney, to discuss, one, whose election? Meaning, if you don't know the difference between the United States of America that was established by the Treaty of Paris after the American Revolutionary War, and you don't understand the difference between the United States Corporation that was established by the Act of 1871 after the Civil War. If you don't know the difference between the United States of America as a nation and a country and the United States as a corporation, and you go and vote, then you don't know what you're doing and whose election you're voting for. The United States corporation is just that. And you're electing board of directors for a corporation in which you are their employee who has put you up as collateral for a debt that the corporation owes to the international banking system run by the Federal Reserve in the United States, right? Most corporations take out loans from banks. You know, you have a startup company, you get loans until you can pay back the loans and make a profit. The United States corporation is just that. It's a business that took out loans from international bankers through the Federal Reserve. And now they got to pay back those loans. And what they do is they put your labor up as collateral. This is why you got to have a birth certificate. This is why you got to be registered in their system. So when you go vote in the elections, you're voting for the election of the United States corporation to continue to make you a wage slave and give them the authority to tax you to pay back the Federal Reserve. So I was really hoping we could get into whose election are you voting for? And that's my opening statement.
Let me go ahead and jump on in with my opening statement. So many great things I got in line for this show. You know, every time when I do a opening statement or a final thought, I always talk about the show and how much of an impact that we be doing. But this is, like I said, this is beyond me, not for my boy, you know, this is beyond me. No, it's not that beyond me. But I always wanted to give a platform for people who have a voice, people that are movers and shakers that you don't even know. And knowing to also piggyback off our guests about the state of emergency was the biggest reasons, one of the biggest reasons why I created this show, created this platform. For us to not voice our frustration, but to get to the solutions, to talk about the solutions, to bring our skills to the table, for us to talk about these things where other people are afraid to talk about it. And this show is starting to expand a lot more. And there are things on this show now that we're going to have to keep behind closed doors. So we're going to start having exclusive content. Not yet, but soon. I'm going to keep you updated. Something I'm still working on, where my panel will have their own shows. They will have their own shows like a podcast, maybe a video show just like this, or sharing information that is way too hot for social media. And I think it's about time that for us to own, like the slogan said, we control the narrative, but to own our narrative, we got to keep it behind closed doors and keep it amongst ourselves. That's the only way we can get ahead of this thing called white supremacy, where we keep everything that we know and how to get it amongst ourselves. And I encourage anybody who just like, I don't care if it's musically, I don't care if you like Superway that's in the streets, that's actually rallying with groups, as well as Ambassador Prince Michael, and also like Anita Joe, aka Teach, as she is a great scholar herself. I don't care what background you have. If you got something to bring to the table and you feel that you're not being heard, hashtag Fade to Black is where you need to be and where you should be not only heard, but listened to. And that's my opening statement. I got some behind the scenes things that I got to do, but Teach, hopefully you're ready. So I'm going ahead. I'm going to go ahead and I'm help you out. So go ahead with your opening statement.
Okay. Well, I was trying to call her and do a three-way and let her do a presentation through the messenger, through the phone, because she can't get it. But anyway, she's not, well, it seems like the call is failing. Anyway, we're just having technical difficulties this evening. Good evening, everybody. Name your death. How is everybody doing on this Wednesday afternoon? And now she's calling me back. And I'm going to answer her on the laptop. We were talking about voting rights, and she was supposed to come on and talk about voting rights. Barbara, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, what I was trying to do is do a three-way on the phone. If you want to be visible, if you could turn on your... Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm on now, so if you want to go ahead and address the audience, you can, if you would like.
Girl, you done got all out. Since it's an important subject, I'll try to go through some stuff real quick there.
Okay. Let me just check with the show. Can you all hear Barbara talking?
Yes, we're able to hear her. But I actually sent her the link to our messenger. If she could check her messenger real quick.
Okay. I think it's not the link, is how to navigate the link. And that's what I was offline trying to help her navigate it. But anyway, if you can hear her, I think it's best for her to go ahead and do her spiel. Her name is Attorney Barbara James, and I believe her specialty is family law. And she also works as a poll worker during the election. And so she has a presentation that she wants to share information with us this evening. And so, Ms. James, let me see. I'm trying to, turn the camera around. All right. So, Ms. James, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. This is just technical difficulties on top of technical difficulties. But anyway, Barbara James, if you would like to go ahead and give your presentation, we would greatly appreciate it.
All right. Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, first, right off the bat, I want to say to you, make voting.org or any of the other sites that you can go to your best friend. And the reason I say that is because that's a one-stop shop where you can actually find out everything that you need to do to get yourself to vote. And first thing that you need to do is, of course, know your status. You can't assume it, that you can't rely on an old voter registration card that you have, because with all the purging and different craziness that's going on, just because you were on the roads last week don't mean that you're on the road this week. At least for myself, I've been like every so often just really checking, because I've been hearing horror stories about people being purged from the list. And so if you go into something like voter.org, then you can find, right off the bat, you can find out whether you're on the rolls. But I want to also inject a little caveat right there. Even if you find that you're on the roll, you might need to update if you've gotten married, changed your name, moved. And when I say moved, I don't care if you moved into the apartment next door in the same apartment building. That is considered a move. And you need to update that on your voter registration. And clearly, if you find out that you're not on there, you know that you've got to get registered. And hopefully you're not in one of those states that have already, the deadlines have already occurred, because quite a number of states, they have already occurred, including today was Missouri. I do know that. But also, once you get yourself registered and know that you are registered and you are on the rolls, then of course, then you've got to come up with your voting plan, whether you're going to vote by mail or whether you're going to do in-person voting. And of course, if you're going to vote by mail, you need to get on it right away, because those deadlines are going to be coming up too really soon here to get your mail-in ballot. And while we're talking about your mail-in ballots, you got to be very, very careful to follow the instructions. There's not any one rule fits all. Every state is different, and there have been crazy things from notarizing your signature to witnesses
Apologies about that, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, coming. There you go.
Ballot occurs due to some technicality, maybe not signing the outside envelope or signing it different than you did on the ballot or whatever. So you've got to be really careful. So my caveat is, if there's somebody, I know we're in coronavirus era, but maybe in addition to you carefully reading the instructions, perhaps you should find somebody that you love and trust to double check it, because we cannot afford to lose any ballots. If you go to the trouble of voting, then clearly you need to make sure that it counts. So the next thing is, if you decide to do in-person voting, clearly you should seriously consider early voting. And again, that's different for every state. So you need to, I would recommend do early voting. But if you decide you want to vote the day of, that's fine too. Just keep in mind that there probably might be people out there who've listened to the man who sits in the White House, and they might be hanging around. Here in Kansas, we call it electioneering if they're doing it inappropriately. So I would say make sure your phone is charged up and do not be intimidated. Take a picture of them. notify election officials, call the police, or whatever you need to do. But in any event, do not let them intimidate you into leaving. I would also say that perhaps another thing to do would be to vote in groups. Go in groups. Go with a group of friends, and then that way, if there is any intimidation, they're less likely to do it if you're not standing there by yourself or you look like you're in a group. The other thing that I want to say on the same road in terms of electioneering, here in the state of Kansas, you cannot do electioneering within that's being here. It's 250 feet near the entryway to the polling station. You cannot be handing out any kind of political material or wearing any of those kinds of things. And so even with people trying to intimidate you, they might be violating the electioneering law. So that's something else to keep in mind. And I know that we're in the time of Black Lives Matter and all of that, but I wouldn't even want to give people any reason to try to challenge what I have on. So I wouldn't even wear anything like that, even though I would say technically it's not violating the electioneering law because it's not political, but all you need is somebody trying to hassle you the day of. I also would like to throw a caveat in is that in your educating yourself and coming up with your voting plan, you need to you need to download a sample ballot for your county or wherever you're voting so that you can familiarize yourself. I can't speak for other areas, but here in the state of Kansas, you have 10 minutes to cast your vote. And so that's not a lot of time for you to be, trying to figure out once you're in the voting booth who you're going to vote for. You need to have already done that homework. And I can't speak for other areas, but here in the state of Kansas, you can take your phone in, you can take a cheat sheet in, but you can't make a phone call. So you can actually go to Google and that sort of thing and look up things, but you don't even want to waste your time doing all that. You want to kind of get on in and get on out. And the other thing that I wanted to say to you, that if one of the reasons when we ask for your ID and we ask you to speak out loud, here in Kansas, at least where I live, everything's on computer. We don't have the old poll books that they used to have. We actually on computer, once you put your ID under there, it pops up on the computer. So we're like when I was telling you earlier that you need to update your registration. If you've forgotten that you haven't updated, and when the election official asks you to give your name and address, we're not looking at what's on your ID. We're listening to what comes out of your mouth, and that's why we repeat it back to you so that we can make sure that what we're looking at on the computer is came out of your mouth. Because if you have not updated, then you're going to be directed over to do provisional voting, and you don't want to do that because your provisional vote isn't counted immediately. If it's counted at all, it's only counted later on when they do what's called canvassing. And so you want your vote to be counted immediately. You don't want to be over in the provisional pile. So like I said, you need to remember to update. And another reason that you speak your name and address out loud, there might be actual poll watchers there, not what the person in the White House said about lurking around the polls, but these are actually people who've been certified by the state to sit there and watch to make sure things are transparent and fair and open, and they need to hear who's voting so they can really check their little list of what they're looking for. And there's here in Kansas, there's a couple of exceptions to that where you don't have to speak out your address. And that's like if you are a victim of domestic violence, or if you are certain law enforcement officers, when they're coming through voting, they don't have to give their addresses out loud so that somebody can, the inappropriate people, hear it. But I also wanted to like stick it here. If you have not if you have not registered to vote, and your state's deadline is already passed, then what I would suggest is maybe you need to volunteer your time in some kind of way. Maybe you need to be an election officer if there's still time to get trained, or maybe you need to drive people to the poll, but just don't give up on the election altogether, because we need all hands on board for this particular election, in my opinion, anyway. And I know that there are a lot of people out there, saying why should they vote? Our votes don't count, and all these kind of things. But I would say if your vote wasn't important, then why for so many years have other people been trying to keep you from voting and to suppress your vote? And it's kind of like Plato said, the price for apathy towards public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Just think about that. The person who's sitting in the White House talks about voting for him because Biden and Harris will turn this into a socialist country. But yet we've seen over the last week or so a prime example of socialism. This guy has paid $1,500 in taxes, and yet he's probably gotten $15,000. I don't know how many dollars for his health care that was paid paid for the rest of us, while at the same time they are trying to get rid of the Obamacare, or the ACA. So think about that, because if you get sick of the virus, then certainly that's going to be a problem. And then when we think about that, say that they get the new Supreme Court justice in, and they vote to get rid of the ACA or Obamacare. And what if then your insurance companies and say you contract coronavirus, so now your insurance company looks at that as a pre-existing condition, then what do? Or you have you can no longer insure your older children as you could under the ACA. So that's something to think about, and why you might want to be motivated to vote. But then a lot of emphasis is being placed on the man in the White House, but we need to be looking at the down ballot slots as well. Just starting with Congress, and just think about all the things that they're responsible for. We have them sitting on a stimulus bill that the Democrats have been trying to get in place. We've had a president who was impeached. There was clear evidence that he had violated the particular laws that were cited, but then we had a Senate that decided they weren't going to impeach him. So we now still have him. And just think about judges, starting with a lot of people do a lot of play on the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court does they only select a few cases in a year. Federal law is really made at the federal district court and the federal appellate court levels. And think about it, this particular president has, at least my last count, has been able to put 218 federal judges on the bench. So that basically means that they are going to be sitting there for life. And most of these people are very, very right-leaning, and they're young. And so that means that your grandkids are going to be sitting there being ruled by these these judges. And that's really, really important because, I mean, that's where Black folks have really been able to see, see things like the Voters' Rights Act, and then and the Voters' Rights Act, say for instance of 1965, and that's real important because they've already gotten rid of Section 5 of the Voters' Rights Act, which gave the pre-clearance, meaning there were certain states that had been designated that had been very discriminatory. So before they could change their voting laws, they had to get pre-clearance from the Justice Department. So as if that wasn't bad enough, now the Supreme Court, I understand, has decided that it's going to be willing to now look at Section 2, which is the discriminatory part of the Voters' Rights Act. So again, just looking, at judges, they play a really, really important role, not even just on the federal level, but even on the state and local levels. We need to look at it. And the other thing that people need to keep in mind, that laws are just words on paper until the courts interpret what those words mean, or at least the people say, we've had it, we don't want this anymore. So clearly, that's really, really important. And then we need to look at other down votes. Look at your state attorney generals. Look at, I can't remember his name, Campbell in Kentucky, at what he's doing or has done in terms of Breonna Taylor. And then you compare it to Keith Ellison in Wisconsin, and George Floyd case. He's come in and he's actually prosecuted. Well, not prosecuted, but at least they've been, police officers.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. James and Teach. We're gonna go ahead and, since she's getting deeper into it, we're gonna go ahead and just get into the main segment of the show so everybody can chime in. Also, Teach, your mic is cut off, by the way. I can't hear you.
Mic muted.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and jump in and Teach. I'm gonna help Barbara James to get on the show. So let her know that I'm a help her, so she can get in.
All right, so Barbara. The host is going to try through Messenger to help you get on the show, and they're going to bring some other guests on at this time.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
I only have about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we got you. All right. So
we only have about 10 minutes.
Yes. So let's go ahead and get into our main stories. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was the longest opening statement ever. So, Barbara James, you hold that record. No, not disrespect. Jokes. That was very informal on what she was saying and everything. So, I just wanted to have everybody, jumping on in. But yeah, Barbara, Miss James, I'm gonna go and start helping you out and Teach. I want you to lead into the show while I'm gone, if you don't mind.
Teach.
I can't hear you. Well, I'm just going to.
Question I would like to pose.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm while we're working on this. After listening to Ambassador's opening statement, I posed the question. You made the statement about we should have our own, in a sense, our own Black delegates that we elect into the offices. And I feel like where we should start is where our already established, quote unquote, Black organizations, such as the NAACP. So, how does everyone else feel about that? Or, what are your takes on that? And what other avenues of already existing entities would be viable to start rebuilding and restructuring?
Well, let me jump in here, and I'm gonna toss it up to Ambassador Prince Michael. Right.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, Jason Kidd.
in contrast to what we just heard, what we're talking about is a completely separate, independent, and self-determined jurisdiction within which to conduct an election, not to send representatives to sit in institutions within their jurisdiction, but to elect representatives to form our own jurisdiction. So this is, I was hoping to ask Barbara James, in her opinion, as an attorney, in her opinion, does voting manifest consent to be governed by the United States corporation? And as an attorney, if the answer is yes, when you vote, you are giving consent to be governed by whoever wins the election, even if you vote for the losing candidate. By participating in the process, you are submitting to being ruled by whatever the process says or determines is the winner. A lot of Black people now at this point, we don't want that. So the alternative is, one, having a vehicle that is outside of their jurisdiction, and two, being able to conduct elections within that vehicle. And that's where I wanted to, this is one of the reasons why I had invited Ambassador Prince Michael on the show, is because he is involved. It's one thing to talk about this intellectually. It's another thing to build this system that would allow Black people, and only Black people who are vetted by other Black people, to be able to choose and say, these are the people that we want to serve as the voice of our nation of Black people to the international community. So with that, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is precisely what we need and would be the solution for the time that we're living in. I think because the key and the objective would be to cover all grounds. I think the grounds as it pertains to what the NAACP does and what the other existing organizations, I think what they do has a well-established momentum. I think it's a well-covered base in terms of people trying to reform the system from within the system. I think the only missing area that us as Black people have right now is working from an external position, and that's what I came to. I'm glad actually, Speedway, you're the one who really pointed out to me that Malcolm X was really, and others, after him, but Malcolm X had actually had a great start and idea of doing that, in working with, the Organization of African Unity, the Presidents of Africa. My thing is this: if we have the ability to do something big and impactful, and we're not utilizing our resources, then that is the simple adjustment that we need to make. Let's start utilizing the resources that's actually there. If we have a declaration from 80 different countries who are saying that they are anticipating and encouraging us to come onto the international stage and to collaborate with them politically, economically, and socially, I think that's what we need to do, because every other country, every other community on the planet, that's exactly what they're doing. They're entering into trade agreements. They have social programs. They have economic resources and programs that they're trading amongst each other and just building upon that. And I would love to see the day that Black Americans make even just the first step towards that direction, as a collective group, as a comprehensive decision that we as a collective Black people are taking, one, good step towards our economic empowerment and our best positioning economically, politically, and socially. And I know there are small segments within our community who have put in valiant efforts towards making that the reality. However, the participation of the whole is the magic word that's going to actually open that door and get it done. And I think now we have the opportunity to actually do that because of the digital age that we're in. And not just that, but the social distancing era that we're in now is actually welcoming in the digital. It's like it's welcoming more. It's creating a more welcoming environment for digital solution. So if we can now utilize the security and the transparency of the blockchain, leverage people's comfortability with its transparency and security, and utilize the blockchain to host a voting elections system, a voting system that people can simply download on their phone within 1 minute, and then have access, through registration, have access to put their official vote on the record in a transparent and secure manner, then that would be at least that would be the least we could do as a people, because now we're talking about something that you can do from the comfort of your own home. You can do within the time frame of your own study. Because we have Google as well, and we have lots of video content that's out there. You can get to learn about the people, and maybe to what the brother was saying, Beast Johnson. Yeah, I'm sure many of the activists that are within those organizations, such as the NAACP, maybe the UNIA, maybe the NOI, maybe whatever different organizations may exist. Some of them would probably be prime candidates to represent us. All we want to do is allow build an environment where they can come onto that stage and give their presentation to the community, put their resume on the table, put their portfolio, put their history, their experience, their skills, their expertise, and put that next to the other bright minds of our generation, because we have so many talented, so many bright, so many great potential leaders within our community. It's a travesty that we're not giving them a stage, an actual political and diplomatic stage that has the power, or in international law is called full powers, which would kind of be like the community authorization. The community must authorize somebody to go forward on our behalf to put their mind to use, their great minds to use. And not just that, as in we're talking about one person, we're talking about an administration. We need a full powered administration of Black people who have the interests of Black people at heart, and also the knowledge and the experience of being Black in America, being able to use that at the forefront of our policy negotiations, or because we are neighbors. We are living here in the United, in America, where the corporation is the dominant force. So there's going to have to be negotiations, but it's time to negotiate these things diplomatically as a nation, seeing eye to eye. So that would be my response, on.
All right, let me go ahead and jump in. I was listening to what y'all was saying when I was doing my technical difficulties type of work. But all of what y'all have said, I agree totally with. Definitely with the last remarks that you just said, Prince Michael. I always say, and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to put my foot down on it when I say that we should have a super PAC. There is no way around it. We have to have a super PAC. Look at all these super PACs that's definitely on the right that has so many super PACs, like the Heritage Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
They send out emails. When I was in Kentucky, I believe I think I ripped it up and burned it. They will send out mail to every freaking house, including mine, about how Obamacare is this and how Obamacare is that. But people in that community, and she can vouch for it because me and her was in the same freaking county, Hopkinsville, Kentucky, that has that same mindset, and that they got so much money that they influence these politicians and they start locally. Now, I do believe in voting. I'm gonna put my foot on it, but where it has a bigger impact is local. And that's how these super PACs work. They find that one person that they will groom, even within their ranks. They will groom them to be a politician, to push their agendas, and then they would get more of them, but they start local. And then once when they go local, then they start making a name for themselves. Then they start to go up in the higher level. Now they're at state. Once you get a group of people and start and spread your agenda all through the state, now you can go up to the federal, and then you can bring all of that to the White House.
Okay. You're begging hold on. You're begging the question. Okay. First of all, we've already had this discussion. Okay. So there's reform and there's revolution. Those are opposites. And then there's a compromise in the middle, which is nationalism. Okay. Now, let's say there's levels to this game. Okay. So for all those people who say we got to work within the system, let's just accept that. When you say the system, though, we need to be clear. What system are you referring to? And again, if you don't understand the difference of the United States corporation versus what was established by the Treaty of Paris, then you are actually doing a disservice to your own people by telling them to go and support the United States corporation. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you don't know what that is, if you send people to go serve within that, okay, that's a problem. But let's just say that's part of the full package. We got to have some people working on the inside in that system. That's fine. But why are we having an election in the first place? Because apart from the military and economic power of the United States corporation in the international realm, they get authority, they get status, they get respect by saying 114 million people participated in this election and consented to have us interact in the world stage on their behalf. So once you understand what the nature of an election is, imagine if we, meaning the 47 to 50 million African-American people, had a process, an election process that could produce or authorize or say, we consent to having this body of people interact on the world stage on our behalf, independent of the United States corporation, who's clearly shown that they do not have our interest. They're in fact committing genocide against us.
Okay.
So is a problem.
Now, I agree with everything you're saying, Seaway. The only problem is I go back and I say the wording. We gotta not necessarily spin it, but we have to understand the perceptive image of what we're trying to do. How is it going to be perceived by everyone else? And when you say things like you want an independent jurisdiction within this land, historically speaking, that's never ran well. Like they came over here and said we want to do our own thing, and we don't. So like having, like when I'm saying, when you say that type of wording, it puts those type of individuals with that type of mind frame instantly in that thought process. Like it's like a trigger word for them. They don't hear anything else. They hear it in the tone of, you want to succeed.
You don't want to have white people in the room determining for us our future.
I agree. But the way to say it, to get everyone together, for those that aren't as enlightened as you are, especially in that facet, you want to, like when Donnell says we need a super PAC, I agree. We need a super PAC. But the way in which we present that super PAC is we are a super PAC of bipartisan, unilateral voters. We represent the Black voice of all, not just Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, but as well as the undecided. We represent them. Now, really, what we're doing is this.
historically,
this is how we're presented.
Historically, that was called a united front, a black
Of
united.
course,
That's
the presentation. That's point. Like now, everything you see is not what it is really, especially behind closed doors. So like everything we're discussing is the truth, but that's like Donnell said earlier. That's that private shit. Like this is shit you got to pay or really know somebody to be in on. But how we present it to the masses in a way that everyone can get in line with, no matter how you feel, you can understand and see the benefit in the alliance with this. Like that's really one thing that we haven't discussed is we figured out the plan. We know where we need to hit and how we need to hit and what fronts we need to hit simultaneously, but how we need to present it.
Well, because
we can't present it that military, that we can't present it in the military. We can't present it in any way that might give them that easy perception.
The presentation for this generation would be to highlight the opportunity that has been given to the African Union 6th region, meaning governments have already decided on that they are willing to interface with us based on this label. Meaning, if you are a descendant of Africa living outside of the continent, right, we recognize you as the African Union 6th region. Now, within that, it's on us to self-organize and say, here are our African Union 6th region ambassadors. These are the people that have been democratically elected through our own independent process that has nothing to do with the United States corporation, has nothing to do with the government of Costa Rica, has nothing to do with the government of Brazil, meaning our people under our own will and our own authority and our own ability to utilize the technological arsenal that we have, which I'm learning about, and Ambassador Prince Michael can speak more about, which is this technology where we can have blockchain elections, where we can say, okay, the African Union 6th region is going to be organized in the following manner. Okay. The United States is going to have this many representatives. Canada is going to have this many representatives. The Caribbean is going to have this many representatives. And here is the process that we have determined for identifying who they are. That could be somebody who's a great economist, but they lean Republican, or it could be a great activist who leans liberal. The reference points have nothing to do with domestic politics. That's
the point I'm saying. Like everything that you're presenting, when presented to someone that is unknowledgeable, and then add on the fact that, hey, by collaborating with this political pact that Donnell speaks of, that we are in correlation with, we work with them. They're the ones funding us to give us the money to be able to do the due diligence and street team effort that we do. So now somebody knows that if I present myself as part of the African Union 6, because I understand and I align myself with that mentality and mindset, you're telling them that now I have that, you're giving people that information and you're presenting it like I said, you're presenting it in a fashion where they don't see it as like, I'm rising up, this is being military. This is like, no, you're presenting the fact of systematically, historically, most blacks that are actually put into office don't truly have blacks in favor with whatever power they are given while in office.
Like the Attorney General from the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Exactly. So with you saying the African Union in correlation with the Black Lives Matter super PAC set up by Donnell, you are establishing the actual opportunity for a Black person to have their vote go toward a Black delegate that can legally, within the confines of this United States, because it will come off as bipartisan. So you're working with the government because they're not going to give you no hell for, let's say they elect me to go up there. They know good and well, African Union 6 got my back. Black Lives Matter PAC got my back. I'm good. I can go, if I'm elected to go into the House of Representatives and speak, y'all going to see me up there.
And then also you will know, and then also you will know that you still got more people on the way. Let's say you represented North Carolina, and now you're up there in Congress. You already left your mark there, and you already got representatives that you probably groomed like, hey, I want you to pick up the torch while I'm gone.
Exactly.
And
that's what I'm saying. Like with everything we're doing, you present it, because that's a great thing and a great movement. Teach, if you're trying to, I think you're trying to chime in when we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Hit your mic.
Go ahead. Yeah, she ready.
Because you have been quiet.
We still can't hear you, Teach.
Yeah, no, we can't hear you, Teach.
But so I agree with everything that you're saying. It's just, I know from personal experience as a Black man, and especially Black men, voice as deep as mine, dark skin with dreads, there's a certain perception that goes with me everywhere I go, no matter how I come into a situation, no matter how I'm dressed, no matter how I carry myself or present myself. That certain level of perceptive image automatically goes as soon as I walk in and open my mouth and speak. So I understand it, and I work with it. I use it to my advantage when necessary, but I know when it can be a disadvantage to me. I acknowledge the racism to a certain degree, but it taught me to understand that how you present things and how you present it is not necessarily how it was perceived. So you do have to take that perception into some kind of consideration, just to make sure that the main objective is overtly achieved as well as subconsciously achieved.
Yeah, this isn't a militant thing. We're not talking about taking over land of the United States and forming.
Oh, I understand it. I understand it.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. The wording that we're using, because remember, we live in an era now of oversensitivity. So any and everybody finds their own little personal trigger words, and that where if you say it, it automatically puts you in a certain mind frame and thought process, and you don't get the true essence of what was being presented to you because you heard a word that puts you in the offset.
Understood, which is the reason why we have to introduce a new nomenclature, meaning there has to be. And so again, the nomenclature of the African Union 6th region is just that. Okay. It's new. It doesn't have the baggage, although it is linked historically to all that predated it. And all it's saying is that if you go into the history, right, during the late 50s and 1960s, African people everywhere on the planet engaged in a struggle to free themselves and gain independence. Okay, that's African people anywhere. When it started, right after World War II, at that point, the only independent nation was Ethiopia. Okay, so from 1954, in 1954, at the time of the Brown versus Board of Education decision, the only group or independent African free people is Ethiopia. And some will argue it is also Liberia. In 1957, now you have Ghana. Ghana, the people organized themselves, and now they are able to interact in the world on their own power, their own authority, and other nations followed. Okay. And so if we want to interact in the world as our own unit without having a filter by the people that enslaved us, Jim Crowed us, engaging in voter suppression, drug war, if we want to engage in the world, right? The world has already instructed us and said, you have to demonstrate that you can organize and produce a single vehicle, right? A vehicle that can be the united voice of your 47 million people in America. Okay. Now, that vehicle is for us to determine and to create what that is. The first effort to do that was recognized by other nations on the planet, right, actually started with Marcus Garvey with the Universal Negro Improvement Association in 1920s. They had diplomatic recognition from the government of Ethiopia and from Liberia. And so the first attempt was to do it through the UNIA. And there were 4 million Black people throughout the diaspora, not just the United States, that formed this vehicle. They didn't, it was the Universal Negro Improvement Association. They weren't a government, although they aspired to be, but they were an association. Later on in history, the next most significant attempt to do that was Malcolm X's Organization of African American Unity, right? 34 nations said, Malcolm, hey, we can do things on your behalf, on the behalf of Black people. We can go to the World Court. We can whatever help you need in your liberation or independence struggle. That doesn't have to be violent. Right? If you can bring the United States to negotiate at the table without violence, then we're not trying to be violent. But other governments said, we will recognize you, or we can help you. We can engage you on the world stage once you are eligible, once you are qualified. And the qualification is you have to demonstrate that you have a vehicle supported by your own people. So Malcolm said, we're going to set up an ecumenical, non-denominational, has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with political parties. It doesn't matter if you're the NAACP or you're Black Panthers, if you're the most reformist or you're the most revolutionary militant. We need to have a vehicle where the full spectrum, right, can come under this tent. And by having a process where, regardless of your religious affiliation, your political, if we have a process that says, here are the people that represent this vehicle to all nations, meaning to America. So we're not within America, right? We are within America, but we can engage America as just one nation among the 209 nations of the world.
All right. I'm gonna let Ambassador Prince Michael, because he has something that he wanted to say. He gonna speak, and then I'm gonna let Cheech jump on in.
What was I wanted to say? I wanted to say that if we I understand what Brother Johnson was saying. If we approach this thing from just registering to vote, because see, the thing about it is, even though everyone is not as enlightened as everyone else, everyone's on different levels. The truth about and just the reality of life is that the majority of people in this country are more followers. They're more monkey see, monkey do, right? So we will never be able to educate everybody simultaneously. So the most practical, I think the more practical thing to do is to build the platform. Like there's a saying, they say, build and they will come. If enough of the aware you know, and active activists. We can just say we can even just say all the leaders. If all the social media influencers picked one day to meet in one location and come up with an election strategy. I'm just talking about just social media influencers. There might be 1,000, there might be 2,000 or whatever. Just with that number of people coming together, influencers, and establishing a platform and deciding that we're going to all point at this in this direction at the same time, that is enough energy to bring the 47 million to 50 million of us to a registration capacity or a point of registering to vote. And when I talk about pointing in a direction, I'm talking about if we get just the influencers together to decide on, you know, an election, to say, hey, we're all going to support an election. We even if we don't even know what we're going to call the United Front, if we don't know what day we're going to, let's just say we don't know nothing at all. All we know is that we have agreed today that we support the concept and the idea of having an election. That in itself is enough to take the whole to the majority of our people in that right direction to say we're going to register to vote. Because if we can take baby steps with our vote, understanding that we can't educate everybody simultaneously, if we can say, hey, the first thing we want to do is let people be aware that it is necessary that we're having an election, and all we want them to do is to register to vote in their own election platform. When we say there is their own, it's black. If you're black, this is for you. It's not me. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's our own. And I think once people are registered to vote, that will then create more likelihood for them to take a step further in the next step for their education. A lot of now the next thing about the education part that I want to say is we are in a new day and age. Like, you will really be surprised at, you know, the amount of awareness that is actually existing on the ground levels. And I'm talking about even within the youth. You can say between age 15 to 25, ages 14, 15 to 25. There's a lot of aware young people who have the energy to take this in the right direction. And if we can present it to them in a process that like you say is not militant, but just logic. Like, hey, there's no black leader. Like, we don't have any official black leaders. We need a black leader. And they're like, oh yeah, we do need official black representation. Okay, so what do we got to do? Well, we have to register to vote. You know, we have to have a system, which we are developing a system like this. It's not even hard now. Like, we even had I spoke to a brother from Nigeria earlier today, who he developed a voting system on the blockchain in Nigeria, and they used it for a university over there. Sierra Leone has also began bringing forward blockchain technology to coincide with their national election process. And you know, generally, you know, you're getting good feedback on this blockchain integration into the election process. And so then, you know, people are already kind of aware of blockchain because of Bitcoin, the popularity. They've seen it shoot up to $20,000 a couple years ago, or last year, whenever it was. So people are mildly aware of blockchain technology. And I think that they're generally comfortable with the security and the transparency that it offers. And if we can just take that first approach and that takes discipline amongst the educators, amongst the teachers, because we have a habit sometime of overloading people's mind because we got a lot of information. You know, let's face it, we got a lot of information. But if we can understand that in this liberation process where we're in right now, for the masses, if we can block out any amount of time, let's say even if it's 1 week or 2 weeks, to say, look, us influencers, we have to be on the same page. The people who sign on to promote this election, all we're gonna do is just focus on registration, like understanding that, you know, the necessity of election and, you know, the first step, which is registration. I think if we take it that way, that would position us to kind of be more successful with being effective, you know, in getting people to actually register and then we can take it to the next step after that.
All right, cool. All right, Teach.
That's going to take a correlation with the well spoken. Those let's be, not every intelligent person can explain their intelligence.
Right.
But you do have individuals that aren't as intelligent as those, but they can articulate intelligent points in manners that everybody can get to. So definitely want to try to find those individuals and collaborate with them to help dispense that information to truly ensure that it hits everybody.
All right, y'all, let's go ahead. Let's get Cheech to come on in because she's been over there patiently waiting. So let's go ahead and let her. The floor is yours, Cheech, because you
can we hear?
Oh,
yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. All right.
Go ahead and pour some water,
this night got off to a rocky start. And so I didn't hear a lot of the conversation. I thought when Barbara came on, we were already into the main segment. I didn't know we were still doing the opening statement. So everything is turned around, upside down. And I had prepared a few statements just to get a history of voting for African Americans in this country. But before I get to that, if I even get to that, I want to say that you all confused me tonight, and I didn't know what you were talking about. So I want to talk about Black nationalism and separatism. To put context to that Black voting, if we are not ready legally, financially, military-wise, to declare full sovereignty in the borders of these United States, then we are talking about secession. And we are talking about, for those like B said with sensitive ears, they're talking about treason. So let us understand what it is that we're saying. Let us understand what it is that we are thinking. We are citizens of these United States. And for us not to actively participate, at least on your local level, if you're not actively having a voice in who is your mayor, who is your city council, who is your sheriff, who's on the school board, if you are not active in your community, in your city, village, town, then you don't count. And I'm thinking about what Booker T. Washington said. He said, put your buckets down where you stand. That's local. You don't want to vote locally, but you want to position yourself to vote internationally, where you have no power, no standing, and possibly no influence. But you can influence the person that lives across the street from you. You can influence the person that lives next door to you. If you're in an apartment building, the person that lives below you, the person that lives above you. Put your buckets down where you stand and understand your voice comes from you. If you feel powerless in your own community, you should be extra powerless in the international community. We have to know that as African Americans, descendants of formerly enslaved Africans, the power structure did not allow any of us, male or female, to have a voice in what happened. Locally, statewide, or federally. So now because of various laws, we have the opportunity to cast our vote, to choose between the lesser of all the evils. But we have that choice. If we don't vote, we're saying, Massa, you got the mind. Massa, you do all the thinking. Massa, however you want to have it, Massa, because I have not found out how to utilize my voice.
That's a complete misrepresentation of.
No, it's not. No,
it is. That's a complete Let me ask you this. First of all, right? You asserted, and it's funny that I'm going to be debating Teach now, but you asserted strongly that we are citizens. First off, let me ask you, when did you become a citizen?
When did I become a citizen?
Yes.
Well, I became a citizen the moment that I was born in 1963. But historically, with the 14th Amendment, African Americans became citizens of these United States.
Okay. Now, have you
it was the 15th Amendment in 1870.
Have you ever studied the 14th Amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so watch this. The 14th Amendment is what is called an offer of citizenship. An offer has to be either accepted or rejected. Okay? Now, I want you to understand, at the moment our ancestors were emancipated, meaning free, at that moment, we were not subject, or the definition of freedom is not subject to coercion. Okay? At the moment of being free with the emancipation in, what was that, 61, 63? From 1961 to 1963, until you get to the 14th Amendment, which was what, 68?
1863.
Excuse me, 1860, yeah, 1863. And then there's a period of time, you don't get the 14th Amendment till 68? So it's something like 5 years where our status in law is we're not citizens, but we're emancipated, we're free. Now, a free people get to choose or decide their destiny. You cannot impose citizenship on a free people, because if that were the case, then that imposition for the United States government to declare that you are a citizen would be to nullify the freedom they just gave you. So, though, like I said in the last show, most of us have never been properly taught law. The 14th Amendment is improperly taught as a grant of citizenship. And if you accept that, then that means you were what? Re-enslaved. You never exercised your right to freedom and self-determination. So I want to challenge us. If you're saying the 14th Amendment made us citizens, that's not an established point in law. That's an opinion. That's not an established, because in order to consent or to make, it has to be free and informed. And when you have a people that were denied the ability to read and write, the people who were never explained their status in the world community, which was governed by the law of nations at that time, not the United States law, but the law of nations. At that moment, if we were never informed of what our options were, and if the United States never acted in good faith to first inform us so that we could make a free and informed acceptance of the offer of citizenship, then on that point, we're not citizens.
So let me ask you this. If the 14th Amendment granted formerly enslaved Africans citizenship, and you decide that you did not want to be one, but the law is in place to say that everyone that was born at this time is indeed and in fact a United States citizen.
What's your question? I didn't hear the question there.
I said, okay, based on your argument, you're saying that the 14th Amendment did not give us the opportunity to accept or reject the offer of being a citizen.
No, I didn't say that the 14th Amendment didn't give us the opportunity. I'm saying
Okay.
that's all it did. It's an offer. It's not a grant. How did they get citizenship? If you're a free person, how does the United States have the authority to tell you that because you're born in this land that you are now subject to them and you have rights and obligations that you never consented to?
Okay, it comes from this authority. When you read over the naturalization laws or the citizenship laws, as the United States was forming itself, they had different provisions. If you came from Western Europe and Eastern Europe, if you lived in the United States for 2 years, then you were allowed to be naturalized. If you were Native American, you were never allowed to be naturalized. If you were African American, you were never allowed to be naturalized. So, in amendment to their naturalization laws, and that's what that amendment is, it upgrades itself to include African Americans. And if you read other naturalization laws, you will see also Native Americans finally had an opportunity after the African Americans to be citizens of these United States. Now, you can argue semantics, you can argue so many things, but when I guarantee you, when you were born, whatever year that was, you were entered as a United States citizen.
Okay, so watch this. Okay, most people, first of all, do you understand what is called maritime admiralty law?
No, update.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Everything that you're talking about is coming from a point of having had the most important information denied you, and you are being filled with an understanding that comes from indoctrination. Maritime admiralty law developed in the time when the European nations were fighting each other for control of the world. At that time, ships were on the seas. And you weren't in your Spanish territory, or you weren't in your Portuguese territory, or you weren't in your French territory, you were on water, and nobody owned the water. So they had to come up with a system of rules called maritime, meaning the laws that are going to govern the seas. This law was established principally by Hugo Grotius in the early 1600s. He was a Dutch, and at that time you had the Dutch East Africa Company. All of the exploration was taking place on water, and it didn't fit the traditional customs that applied to land. So they created this new law called Maritime Admiralty Law that would govern the relationships between sovereign peoples, sovereign nations on water. That is the law that governs the word that you just said called birth. Because originally when a ship came into a port, it was called birthed. The ship was birthed in the port, okay? And the ship carried goods. And when there was a transfer of goods, okay, property, the ship captain had to negotiate with the authority of the port that they were in for the transfer of the goods, which took place as a result of what they called a birth certificate. This says that the goods that are coming off your ship that were once the property of France, now that you're in a Spanish port, these goods now have a life or a birth date in the French territory. They now have manifested their existence under our jurisdiction. Okay. Now, when you are quote unquote born, when you come out of the womb of your mother, inside the womb is water. So they have interpreted maritime admiralty law to govern the property that comes out of the water, which is governed by this law. When that property comes out, okay, the child is born and there is a placenta. The placenta is the proof that you exist because the placenta carries both the DNA of the mother and the child. Okay. So how do I prove that I exist? Well, my DNA came from my mother, and the placenta proves that. When you are born, okay, in the traditional African society, we did things with the placenta. But in this system, when you're born, nobody claims the placenta. What they do is they make a notice. They're saying there's this unclaimed placenta because you were never educated to go and claim your placenta. Because you don't go and claim the placenta, right? Silence in law is consent. And then what they do is they issue a birth certificate saying that the child is now property that came out of the water of the mother, is now the property of what? The United States of America. Now, when your response to me is, well, Sipiwe, when you was born and whenever you was born, April the 14th, 1971, that birth certificate, right, is saying that since we weren't educated, right, as to what we should do in that moment, we are coerced through lack of education where we sign a birth certificate, which literally says that the thing that came out of the water of the mothers is now the property of the United States Corporation. Now, I'm saying that entire process.
Hold on.
No.
Repeat it.
No,
Repeat
it does
because
not
you had
say that you
technical
are the
difficulty.
property of the United States of America. It says that you were born to female Negro, male Negro. When you were born in 1971, it did not say that you were the property of the United States of America. Now, I may have said that in 1681.
No. The birth certificate gets registered where, Teach?
In the county clerk's office.
And the county
But
clerk.
what he's saying, Teach, is
health
that
department.
no. What he's saying,
It's
Teach,
registered.
no.
It's registered, yes.
It's also registered with corporations as well.
Right. The county
clerk. What he's saying is
a department
many
of the
people Social Security numbers have pulled up not just as their birth certificate.
Yes.
Okay. So
but also as a corporate asset. So what he's saying is when you're born in America and you do not claim your placenta, that placenta is your identity. Another birth certificate for stock as profit, as product is now conceived for you. And then the regular birth certificate is the one you get.
Let's stop.
I think that's what he's trying to get to.
Hold on.
A maritime admiralty. What happens is
in current time, how do you mediate that today?
Okay,
that's what I was saying.
October the 7th, 2020. How do you mediate that?
I'm
do
glad.
You say, oh no, I'm not a citizen. Oh no, I'm not going to vote.
Okay.
Oh no, because they didn't grant me because I wasn't informed before my mother. How do you make that make sense?
Okay,
let me.
Functionality, make it make sense.
Stop. I know we keep respect.
Mr. O got his voodoo going.
Yeah, I know. Mr. O's not even here. He got everybody sitting there just talking like, oh, what's going? All right, so we're gonna let Cheech let her give her side.
Well, she asked a question.
Yeah, so we'll let her ask again, and then you can go ahead and answer. Then Teach, I'm gonna let you go ahead and have your spill. Because Sipiwe, you had your spill, like I had my spill water. So go ahead. Look, all that I can say is Ambassador Prince Michael, welcome to the OK Corral of Thought.
I love it. I love it.
This
Oh,
is
yeah,
Family
I
Black.
got an idea. I got an idea too of how to
Yeah,
mediate that.
Yeah, got you. So only thing I gotta say is just go ahead and get your cup. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, visit our shop. Go ahead and get your cup. Me and Beach Johnson. I see you over there eating on some candy and all that stuff. So I'm gonna enjoy this. But go ahead, teach. Go ahead, ask your question, and go ahead and give your spill.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you how to mediate that. Just hold it, because I'm gonna have another question that you can answer. In forming a super PAC, I need everybody on the panel to just drop 10 points immediately for the Black agenda.
Okay.
And the room goes silent.
No,
all right, just hold it.
No,
Think
I was trying to understand the statement. I was trying to understand the statement before, so I was like,
yeah. Go ahead.
10 points.
I'm getting ready to drop 10 points. I'm sure Beast can and Ambassador Michael too. I just want to know, do you want me to answer your first question and then drop my 10 points, or do you want me to drop the 10 points and answer your question?
I want you to think about what I said and let me finish, and then you can answer the question in any order that you like.
I've thought about it for years. That's why I already have an answer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So first of all,
the point, let me finish my point. Okay, please.
Okay.
I just want to say that we have crossed many hurdles, and I don't think this is the time for us to stop the race and dream of a different day and dream of another way when we have work to do right here, right now. We have functional work to do. I understand and I agree with the international voice, because as you know, I am one that have been elected to hold that voice with the 6th Regional Diaspora Caucus and representative to the African Union. I understand that, but at the same time, what are we doing locally? What impact are we making in our own communities, in our own cities, in our own counties or parishes, depend on where you live? What impact are we making in our own state? Are we just feeling like, they control us, I don't like the Republicans, I don't like the Democrats? Well, there's some issues on the table that affect us whether you vote or not. Okay? Whether you vote for the candidate that wins or the candidate that loses. Those issues that come out of the policies that they make, they will directly impact you, every one of you. So you can, how could I say it? Pacify yourself with a second type of mental imprisonment by arguing mute points. Or you can say, hey, either I can make an impact in my immediate community, and I can work on the broader community. I can be familiar with the politics in my city. I can go talk to my mayor. I can talk to my alderman. I can talk to my council member. Hell, I can be the mayor. I can be the alderman. I can be the council person. Put your buckets down where you stand. And now I yield the floor.
Okay. So she had originally, okay, this is the problem. She had originally directed a question at me for something I said, right? Then she requested a 10 points, and then Teach went on and gave her views. So now we have all these things on the table, and I'm not quite sure. Do you still want me to answer your original question? Do you still want the 10 points from the panel, or do you want me to respond to what you just said?
In your own sovereignty.
If I could jump in and kind of help mediate.
Okay.
If I could jump in and kind of help with this real quick, see what?
I'll be quick. First of all, to her question, what's the remedy? Right? The remedy first of all, the remedy is going to be as complex as the system and process that created the problem. So if you expect me to give you an effective plan of action in one instruction, right, that's totally unrealistic. But the remedy begins by first and foremost understanding the origin of the problem. If you don't understand the origin of the problem and how you got entangled in this system, you can't conceive even the need to extricate yourself from the system. So the remedy begins by teaching people all of that information that's been kept from them. Even when you go to a law school, most of these lawyers, right? And this is what I wanted to engage Barbara with on, was her understanding of admiralty law. What is the relationship between voting and consenting to be governed? Because what you're saying is, right, this whole thing that we're engaged in, this government, is supposed to be based off of your consent. So if we don't step back and actually look at this system before we discuss what can be done within this system, if we don't step back to observe this system to see what it is and also see what are the other potential systems, right, then that's like somebody trying to play a game of Monopoly and you don't know what the rules are. And you keep losing because you never studied the rule book and you don't understand the nature and the operation. Now, when you say put your buckets down in your local communities, I agree with you. But what you call my local community and what I call my local community are two different things. My local community, right, is the community of Black people who are all living in the land of their captivity under a system of laws designed to make them chattels. And we have been dehumanized, meaning, right, there was a process put in place to make us non-human, to make us slaves and chattels that had an effect on our DNA. Okay? Now, after the Civil War, we are no longer physical chattel slaves, but the damage has never been corrected. And they are expecting us to function in the system that they built, and we haven't critically analyzed it. My local community is all the people that are suffering the same condition as me. So the effect that I have in my local community is, okay, each person that I talk to, each person that I feed, all of those things. So I'm not, for you to characterize what I was saying as being pacifistic, when what I'm actually requiring of each of us is more work. You have to study more, and then you have to take on greater responsibility to do more with less resources. So don't mischaracterize the path forward that I'm discussing as being pacifistic. What it's saying is that you have to interrupt the system. A system is inputs, processes, and outcomes. Either you change the inputs or you change the processes. And right
when
now,
you sit out the vote, you're just like your formerly enslaved ancestor. They did not have a voice. They could not vote. Okay. So to revert back is the same thing. You're giving them all of the power. Now, when you say voting and giving the consent to be governed, and it was never corrected. What do you think the 15th Amendment?
All right. Go ahead, B. Johnson. Go ahead. You the interpreter of everything. Go ahead, B. So then you got the floor.
Let me play mediator, because the one thing that's truly being missed, and I guess me being the hood dude over here, y'all don't have the hustle mentality with the approach of this. Teach your right, see for your right. Problem is, in the long con of it all, teachers' mindset is more feasible to be reached quicker than Seafaways. Now, the easiest way to achieve everything, it goes back to the approach. It goes back to achieve the unilateral support and unilateral understanding of all blacks, no matter how they feel personally. Because personally, someone like you and truly believe that whether they have the knowledge or not, they truly believe in their hearts that they don't need to be here, they're not wanted here.
That's
and
a completely
any legal way that they can to go different.
One thing that we have evidence of is since emancipation, the one tactic that we have wholesale been engaged in that we have more evidence of that doesn't work is voting. We've been voting since 1865, and this is where
but
we're
I'm
at.
not disagreeing with you. That's the point I'm saying. See what?
Okay, well, I'm just saying you said that to get what
No,
you said.
I understand that completely.
Where quicker? We since 1865 we've been engaged in this tactic, right? And here and it got us where we are now.
Yes, but we have not been. But it's not unilateral. It's not unilateral because there's always going to be division. No matter what we do, there's always going to be some kind of division because everybody feels like, all right, we're here. Let's make the best of it. Let's build something that we can move forward with, that we know is ours. While others are like, let's move to
the election.
To move forward.
The election.
That's the point. That's the point I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
Or your state representative.
In order to do that,
I'm gonna get you in
by being able to say, I have 47 million people that are united with me, and are recognized.
I'm like Teach right now. I'm trying to get to that point. Locally, when I'm saying both of you are right, in order to achieve that, you have to get like Teach and say, all right, locally, we need to go ahead and get this thing going. Now, while we're doing it locally, we have individuals like yourself that have the credentials and the expertise, and just like Teach, to go overseas and go to the actual countries, like you said before, of Ghana and Sierra Leone.
I need to clarify this because there's a complete misinterpretation.
Let me finish. Just let me finish.
Hey, Beast, when you done, I'm gonna let once you done, Beast. Once you done, Beast, I'm gonna let Ambassador Prince Michael come in. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I'm saying, because the main thing I'm saying is by encouraging that local front of yes, get in with local politics, and yes, we do need to have this personal connection and alliance with our African heritage and our African nations. Now, while establishing that, you can encourage people to get in on the local front through that. Like, all right, get in with locally, but also know that we are going, especially for those who are African Americans, actual Africans that have been Americanized. Go back to their home countries, especially get in with their government and establish what you were speaking of earlier. And when you come in, once that's established, you can come back with that information and only fuel the fire more to bring people in, saying that, all right, we had, like you said, we have these X amount of nations that we're already linked up that are willing to speak on our behalf on any situation that's going on. And if you explain to like anybody from Ghana that has an injustice that's going on in their area, they're willing to speak on your behalf. Well, there's several million people from Ghana stretched across the nation of Ghanese heritage. So that will cover a lot of Black people without technically covering all Black people. That's all I'm saying is it can be done. You just might have to be a little slick with it, but multiple goals can be achieved. Right. And you can get what you're going, and you can still encourage and get the same movement you're going for what you're preaching, as well as what Teachers preaching, and it's actually working together. It's just working in different facets.
All right. Let's go get Ambassador Prince Michael, and go ahead, Prince Michael. You've been waiting patiently, so go ahead, intervene, man.
Okay, so I want to say directly, going from like the natural process of things. If we look at nature, when you're boiling up a pot of water, or cold water, The water doesn't go instantly from cold to hot. It goes from cold to warm to hot. See what I'm saying? So that warm, that mid-level, that midpoint is what we are looking to establish. Right now, we're cold. We're all operating as United States citizens. We're consenting to the United States corporation. We're consenting to the dehumanization. We're consenting to the racism and all of that. What we're talking about, what Sipiwe is talking about, is establishing a platform that allows us to have dignity and not to be dependent on people who are dehumanizing us to move forward and have that dignity. So what we got to do is establish both polarities. You have to have, just like everything, you have a positive and a negative, you have a masculine and a feminine.
Exactly.
We have to have both. What Sipiwe and what we're saying is to because you got to understand the voting mechanism of Black people, or the culture of Black people voting in America, in the United States, is already well established. Like he said, we've been voting since 1865. That's not going to disappear overnight. So we don't necessarily have to keep conceptualizing how we're going to reshape this voting mechanism for the United States corporation. That's there. What we're talking about is, for one time, one good time in history, even if we say we just take one day out of the whole year to finally establish a vehicle that can be that second polarity, that feminine polarity. Because let's just say we already got the masculine one, because we're being abused by it. It's not nurturing us whatsoever. We're taking, let's take one day or one effort where the community puts in the energy to establish that vehicle that at least somebody can drive, or a small group of people or whatever. But we don't even have a vehicle to take care of international business. We have the domestic vehicle to consent to the United States jurisdiction. We've been doing that. And like I said, we're going to do it again in a couple weeks. It's going to happen again. Even if no one else goes live on Facebook for the rest of this month, people are still going to show out in record numbers or whatever on November 3rd or November 2nd, whatever date everyone's voting. That's there. We don't have to do nothing else to get Black people to vote in the United States. So, but we do, on the other hand, we have to put energy into getting people to establishing of international presence. We don't have that yet. So logically, what we're saying and what Sipiwe is saying, it makes sense that we have to put an effort, a unified effort, into at least making sure the vehicle is there, and then you can race. Let's have a race. If we say it's one person says let's work it, let's do reform, and one person says let's do revolutionary, I'm saying let's have a race. Let's put both cars on the racetrack and let's see which one gets us to the finish line. But as it stands today, we only have one vehicle. You can't have a race with one vehicle. Now, let me, I got a couple other points I wanted to make. That's one thing. The other thing is, when we're talking about international business, the way it's being discussed here, it seems as if this pertains to things outside of America. There are local issues that when we talk about international positioning, the majority of Black America's international issues are local. Yes. They are right here in America. You don't have to leave this land in order to handle and engage in international business. You can go to the White House as soon as if we establish an international entity and we take a Greyhound bus up to Pennsylvania, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, you are officially engaging in an international meeting, because it's a legal classification. It's not a physical trip to get on a plane and go. That's not what international business is. If Black people go and meet with the Hopi tribe in Arizona, or the Cherokee, or any other Native American tribe, that's international business. We're not physically leaving the land to do it, but it is still international. That's the next thing I want to say. Now, the other thing I want to say is the remedy is
rehumanization, because we were dehumanized. And if we focus and understand what it means to rehumanize ourselves, and that is the actual moral, ethical, scientific, and economic debt owed to us, is because if you turn a prince into a frog, justice is not giving the frog an endless supply of flies to eat for the rest of its life. True justice is returning the frog back into a prince. That's justice. That's what has never happened with black people in America. Now, lastly I want to say is I have a question for Teach, because she's saying that what we're doing in our own city, what are we doing in our own cities, our own towns, our own state? My only question is, what city, what town, and what state can you point to on this land that is our own, that is owned by black people? That's my only question. Which one is our, because I think it's a great question, because we should be focusing on our own cities, our own towns, and our own states. However, I can't find any. I can't find not even one. So where do we go? And the only way to establish that is to engage in international activities. And the only way to do that is to establish that international entity, the unified front that we're talking about. We can't do none of that until we build that second car.
All right. Before anybody say anything, I hate each and every one of y'all because y'all pushing me into the corner being a damn host. I hate y'all. God dang it. see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have everybody putting this is what I'm talking about here. Then, first of all, for any disclaimer for anybody who want to put it on YouTube, like, oh, he owned her or she owned them. No, these are what
nobody own nobody.
This is what this show is all about. This is what a true discussion with black folks coming to solution looks like. Yes, do we get passionate for what we believe in? Yes, but it sucks when you're the host and you want to put your 2 cents in, but you can't. You got to play host because everybody have good, views and points, and all the points I'm trying to say is what everybody else is saying. Okay, enough of my grieving and ranting. Teach, go ahead. I'm throwing the ball to you. Go ahead.
I'll respond.
Right, go ahead.
I'll just say,
I'm over here. I'm venting.
I was born and bred in a city that African Americans owned the city, and that is Motown, Detroit, Michigan. It was a mecca at one time where people from the South just had to come to this city. We had a black mayor, black city council, black board. We had everything going for us for a number of years. And the mayor that spearheaded it was Mayor Coleman A. Young. Okay, we owned this city. We don't own it now, but we at one point in time, other mayors, and other people who one of the things that Mayor Coleman Young strongly advocated for. He advocated everything that was done had to benefit the citizens of the city. At that point in time, we were 85% black. Everything, all the contracts had to be funneled through and for African Americans. Other mayors after him began to sell off the city assets. We're a democratic city, but they began to privatize, which meant that a lot of the city workers lost their pensions. They cut the wages. Like, say, a garbage collector at one point in time was making $20, $25 an hour as a city worker, mostly African American. Then they privatized under these newer mayors, and that same sanitation worker had to go get a second job because under private, he only made $10 an hour. The city of Detroit owns the Detroit River. The suburbs wanted the river. Coleman Young said, never sell any other city assets. We own the salt that's made by the Morton Salt Company. We have the salt mines in the Detroit River. He said never sell them. And these newer mayors, they sold the salt mines. They sold the river. And if you know anything about our history right now, we went bust. When it went bust, then gentrification came in. Now, all the city workers are white. Now, the older people, they're basically becoming homeless because their pensions have been stolen. So there was a day and a time that I witnessed with my own eyes where Black people got out and voted for the mayor, voted for the city council, voted for the school board, voted for the sheriff, voted for the governor, and we had things our way. And then my second point, I believe Seepaway wasn't on this particular show, but I had looked up some information that may help you with your plan. And that is, it only takes 150 people in a 2-mile radius to declare themselves sovereign as a town, and they are not subject to county taxes and not subject to state taxes. So there's a way, get you 2 miles, 2 square miles, put 150 people in it in density, and openly declare the city or town that you so desire and have rules and regulations. Now, once you get them 150 people, ask them to vote. Get a mayor, get a city council, put up some rules and regulations. Whatever you want to do in that city, you can do it. So that's what I see.
Let me respond to that. First of all, there's some things I don't discuss on this program. We know that information, and we're already engaged in that process. Second of all, you're incorrect to say that you own the city of Detroit. The municipal structure, right, which fits into a larger structure, right, they allowed you, right, to drive their vehicle. And yes, your material conditions improved, but that's a complete fabrication to say that you own that city. You did not own that city. It's like if you build the car and you build the car, let's say the white system of white supremacy build the car, but they let you drive it for a while. You driving the car does not make you the owner of the car. It makes you in control of the car for temporary purposes. Now, it is out of that.
Let me ask, is there anything better that you want? A quality of life for its residents. Is there anything greater that you want? We were in control. Okay, so we're going to play with words.
That's the point he's making.
But the bottom line is, we made Detroit be what it was. That's what I'm saying. We influenced the power of it. That's what I am saying.
Okay,
what
now
else do you want?
What I'm saying is, not only do we want,
you're trying to find a way not to see success. That's all. You're trying to find a way not to see success.
I don't see that. Teach.
That's what I hear.
I don't see that.
Okay, go ahead, Beast. You're the translator.
What I'm hearing them say is, because it's the point I'm hearing that he would hear to make. And the fact that he hasn't verbally said it, he's kind of beating around the bush. But the point he's trying to get to is, yes, all that is true. And yes, that is the foundation they're building from. They're looking for consistency, unilateral consistency. We want to know that and have that success in our own car that we control. Because we know at some point, somebody, it may not be the original owner. It may not be exactly. In your case, with your at some point, some black mayor decided to sell out, and after about the third one to do it, the black residents lost their hope and faith in actually voting.
But Beach, let me go
So
ahead.
that's
Let me go ahead and jump
Go ahead.
in because I'm understanding what the translation that's what you're doing. But I want to go back to what Superway is saying that white supremacy built this car and he just temporarily like, hey, here, take for a joyride. Go ahead.
no,
But bring it
I,
back.
where he's
Bring it
where
back.
he's. I like where you went there though, because that was the next
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of, as we know historically, white folk at some point gonna feel some kind of way and want to do something about it, no matter how rational or illogical.
Right.
So we want to assure that if we're going to be in this land, we have an established existence within this land that we don't have to worry about that in your time, his time, my time, Ambassador's time, Donnell's time, or the fifth generation of our descendants' time.
Right.
We want to know that is established.
Right.
And globally, we know we need to get help from back home and make sure that, hey, if shit if and when that do happen, we already got that call laid out. They already know what it is. Like you said, 3 generations down the line, it might be that one white that want to stir this shit up again. And because of the work that y'all done, we already got that established. And because they started and continue locally, like T said, we continue and have that structure already established, and we can hit them with that or else. You can hit them with in case you want to act up, just remember, we still have all the nations of Africa on our side, as well as the newly established United Nations of Europe, as well as the United Nations of Asia, or wherever the other nations may call themselves at that time. The point being, the work we're doing now, in the long run, we want that consistent success and that consistent level of living.
All right. So
that's the point they're trying to make. And I agree with it. And that's really what everybody really wants. That's the whole thing. You want your grandkids to live good.
All right, go ahead, Super
So
Wade.
that's the mentality we look at.
Hey, right. A person would make this system saying we own that town. A person can only make that statement when they don't understand how rule of law is operating in the world today. If you don't understand how the rule of law is operating, how natural law has been suppressed, and there has been an evolution that is what is called from ecclesiastical law to common law, to canon law, to common law, to statutory law, right? When you don't understand these things, right, and you don't understand the game that's being played, for example, in the United States, after the Civil War, there was a war debt. After the Civil War, there was no money and there was a war debt. And what 2 groups of white people were fighting over was who was going to have power, who was going to have money, and how were they going to deal with the war debt. And what happened was the resolution of that problem between 2 groups of white people was that they established a corporation that then took out loans against international bankers and used us as collateral. And as a result, we have become wage slaves. We have been re-enslaved because of this system. Prior to that, there was no Federal Reserve, there was no income tax, there was no birth certificates. And so when you want to talk about ownership, after the Civil War, we had entire states where we were the majority. We had majority elected local officials. We had majority elected state officials. And what did U.S. corporation do? They changed the state law because there's a power that is in operation that is higher than the municipal level. It's higher than the state level. That in fact is owning things, because the bottom line is just about everyone on this call that's on this panel and it's listening to this is still working a job for white people that they don't want to work. And the question is hold on.
No, go ahead. Keep on going.
Why? Why are you compelled to go and do something for the majority of your day that you really are not passionate about and that you don't want to do? Why? So that you can get money to pay rent, pay bills, and survive. So you're in debt to this system. And if you don't pay that debt, it's how are you going to survive? If you don't understand how you became indebted under that system, then you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. You can't even have this conversation with me.
Okay.
Let's say this. Let's say this. Your understanding of it is different than my understanding. We can 100% agree in that way. But I asked you, what is your plan and what is the functionality of it?
Okay, step number one.
And if you don't establish it here, what system will you establish elsewhere on someone else's land? There's a system in every land in the world. Unless you go get that 2 square miles and put your people on it and develop your own laws, you're going to have to be in agreement with somebody's laws somewhere. If you went to Africa, if you went down into the Atlantic Ocean, there's laws like you talk, the maritime law. It is the natural laws that you would have to deal with to do whatever it is that you want to do. My point is this.
Am I ever going to
maybe
your question?
Maybe it's too simple because your point really sounds hopeless. It's like we'll never get there. That road is so long and so far away that we'll never get there. And I show you how people stood up for their own town and made it be what it is, made it be a place that is good for living, it's good to work, it's good to retire, it's good for education. If you know Cass Tech is one of the premier high schools in the nation. I went to Cass Tech. We made it be what it is. And that's what I'm saying. Take credit from where you can. We're in this system. We're not out of the system. So do what you can in the system. Why sit on the sideline and say, oh, the white supremacy, they're always going to take this? Yes, we have the history
again,
of
Professor,
white supremacy.
I got to jump right in because if I allow you to characterize what I'm saying as sitting on the sideline, as if we're not becoming actors in our own behalf, is a grave mistake. Right? It's not that we're sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything. I agree with you. What I'm talking about is building a local organization that is so strong and powerful that it can actually own the city, not just be allowed to have control for a while, that they can actually own the city in the actual international order that runs the earth. The United States sits in an international order. We sit in that international order, but we have never been taught, because we are still suffering dehumanization. We don't function as actual human beings. The first social unit of human organization is the family. The next level of organization of the family is those communities. So all of our Black families, right, have to form this community. And then those communities, the next level of organization is a state society or a nation. That is the instrument that every group of people on the planet use in order to function as full human beings with full dignity on the earth. What I'm talking about is we've got to get about the business of getting all the families organized in strong local communities who understand that to get what you want, which is have these beautiful communities that we make great, that we control and that we own in the same way that the United States owns its system, then we got to put in work. I'm saying all the people that that are on what
Put
we
your
talk
bucket
about.
down where you stand.
Right, all the people that are talking about, I'm just going to vote in this. Y'all are the ones that are sitting down on the sidelines of the real life that goes on the planet Earth. Y'all are the ones that were taught to limit your horizon to the corporation that owns you. And you're not realizing that right now you exist and you have the ability to exist on a dignified level. That's what we had to be. So we can vote. We can put people in local city councils, which is what happened in Pontiac, Michigan in 1954, right? When you had Milton Henry, he was the city commissioner. He said, I was one of 7 city councilmen representing the entire district. I sat there, and of course, 1 out of 7, out of all of this councilmen, I was just 1 black out of 7. I could see very readily that we didn't have any ability to do much more than just trade on particular items. The municipal court remained almost completely white. The fire department was completely white. The police department. So even if you have control of the municipality, then the state level is, right? If you do something as a municipality that the state level don't like, then they come in with the state thing. If you do something at the state level that the federal don't like, they come in with the federal. He said,
So
I was.
where do you suggest you do what it is you're trying to create? Where will you do it?
He said,
I was on the moon.
Hold on. He said, I was.
Where would it be?
Hold on. Listen. He said, I was just wasting time. I was a figurehead. I was there as a black man representing black people, but I could see in reality I had no power. So what did he do? He left. He left with Malcolm X. Milton Henry went with Malcolm X. He went to Africa and he saw what it was for all of a sudden this first group of black people, right, who were existing under their own jurisdiction, under their own authority. People that were once in the condition that he was in, he saw that. And so they came back and they said, we have to go through the liberation process that every other group of black people went through. I don't think we're any less capable than any other group of black people. That Milton Henry that I'm talking about became Gaidi Obadeli, who became what? The vice president of the Republic of New Africa. So while you're talking to me about what happened in Detroit, I'm also talking to you about what happened in Detroit. And I'm saying that the responsible
Pontiac is not Detroit.
Okay, Michigan, state of Michigan. But my point being is that responsible people that had the experience, the actual experience of seeing the transformation of going from being dehumanized and having no status to being rehumanized are the ones that came back and said, look, right, we've got to go in this new direction. And the sentiment of black people right now is they feel like Republicans, Democrats, they're just 2 wings of the same bird. Like you said, lesser of 2 evils.
I agree.
The choice is,
with that.
Do I want to be shot in the head or do I want to be slowly poisoned? And once you come to that is the choice being put in front of you, you will have an epistemological change, a change in conscience. You will have a change where you become an outlaw. This is what Nelson Mandela said. If you can't lead the life you want to live from within the system, within the law, you automatically become an outlaw. Now, with respect to what B said, I don't want to talk about becoming an outlaw because then that's going to run people away. So what we're talking about is a simple thing that we can do right now without talking about taking over land, without talking about guns, without talking about that, is simply saying, if we can demonstrate that we are a local community of 47 million people that can engage in one process, the same process that the United States uses to say that it has authority in the world, if we could have our own election process, even though we don't have a territory, even though we don't have a military, but if we can go through a process that says, okay, when it comes to the business of our local black communities, whether we're talking to the local city councilor, the mayor, the governor of the state, the president of the United States, or any other nation on the planet, these are the official people to talk to.
Okay,
So-
let's start here.
We
Let's
are
start here.
officially in overtime.
Instead
We're
of-
in overtime. Just want to let y'all know.
Okay,
Oh,
I'll
we
be
been
short.
overtime.
Instead of targeting 47 million, let's start out with 300 people.
I just do
And
that
4
symbolically
square
to say
miles.
that it's all black people. Okay, I just
I
do that
understand. I
symbolically.
understand. But I'm saying instead of trying to bite off a big chunk, let's bite off a sizable chunk, a small chunk, a chewable chunk.
Right now, we're
300
talking
people,
10,000.
4 square miles.
No, we're not even
300
talking about the
people,
territory right
4
now.
square miles.
No, all we're talking about is 10,000 people
Hey.
on their phone, right?
Okay.
Engaging in a blockchain election exercise to develop the platform that we can use, just like they're doing in Sierra Leone, so that we have an independent election process, so that when we get to the point later on down the road, right, this is how you build that thing. I'm not dreaming.
But
Right.
independent voting process for who? For what?
For all the
In
local
what category?
all the local communities that you said we got to put our buckets down for. All those local communities can come together and say, when it comes to the business of this local community, these are the people that we authorize to engage in world affairs, whether it be world affairs at the local level, at the state level, the national level, or the international level.
All
Okay.
right, go ahead, Teach.
I want to say one last thing. There's a gentleman that I've been trying to bring on. He's from Nigeria, or his parents are from Nigeria, and he was born here in America. His name is Akindele. I don't know if you're all familiar with him, but I sat in on a meeting, I'd say maybe 2 years ago, to what Nigerian is doing with these two square miles. There's a city called Inkster that is southwest of Detroit. It's still in our county. And back in the day, it was a black suburbia. That's where the black elites lived in Inkster, Michigan. So it's a nice neighborhood. In this meeting, they disclosed to me their plan, well, how they took over the city. Basically, they brought in or encouraged Nigerian immigrants, one, to buy the residential property, 2, the commercial property, 3, they positioned their people and put them on the city council, they put them on the school board. Any entity that ran that city, they got their people on, and they have effectively taken over that particular city. And I was impressed because I seen people with a specific goal and they were accomplishing it. They also opened up a bank and a credit union in that city. So it was owned by black. Basically, I mean, it was a black town, but now it's a Nigerian black town. And so they positioned themselves, and they're turning that city into a Nigerian Mecca. Anything and everything you want Nigerian can be found in that city. So for African Americans, we have Rosewood, Eatonville, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've had black cities at one point in time that they ran, they owned, but the other people wouldn't let them have it. So if we dream for a day, if we dream for 5 years, if we dream for 25 years, then we're good. Because in the system in which we live in, they're going to find a way. Either burn it down and kill all the people.
And that's not good. That's the point but that's the point that they're making.
But I think I see what Teach is coming from too.
Yeah, I see I understand exactly where she's coming from, but long term though, like you said, at some point they're going to do that. And like I said earlier, at some point somebody's going to feel some kind of way. So why, knowing that innately, at any age of a black person that at some point in time, some white person is just going to start feeling uppity and want to start kicking up some shit.
But
and
see,
it may get to a grand scale. So like, why continue to go? Why not establish something that can balance that effort and that energy?
But remember, on the past show, I did say the one thing that happened with Tulsa, Oklahoma, what they messed up on, they got lax. They got lax to the point of like, we're good, you know, we got our own businesses,
That's what, yeah,
you know, that stuff. So I did say on one show, I was like, they should have had their own militia, because majority of the people that was in that community was prior military. I would believe it was World War I around that time. If I look it up, I probably am wrong, probably World War II, but they was all prior military. And so that's the point that I was putting. I was like, it can happen. So like I said, all the things that's been said on the show is not wrong. Yes, we do need an international presence. We do need to be like, hey, there's a black folk. We getting it together, but we're close enough. But then also we have to worry about what's going on locally and get our influence there too as well.
You guys keep misinterpreting. It's not we need an international presence. What we need, what we need is a vehicle for all of our. It's not. We got to get this clear, because you, just like Beast was saying,
we need, like I said earlier, keep it short, simple. As the corporate entity of the United States government, we as black people need a entity that balances and rivals that. And anything else to coin the old deodorant would be uncivilized.
But then
that's what they're looking for.
But
because we know what we want, that success the teacher's talking about. But we know at some point, you know, so why keep going through that and trying to just set up something that has all the stopgap and firewall measures that's going to have that continuous success, that it might be here after the United States government.
Yeah, and I understand that, but it goes back to what Teach was saying. She's like, okay, where are we going to do it?
You don't have
that's what I'm saying with her. You're establishing. You're establishing it locally here. Think about it like this, Seaway. We're making the parts here. We're building it here. That's what teachers talking about.
Matter of fact, to be more clear, we're doing it on paper to make it make sense better. It's being done on paper. We do not exist on paper. We have no paperwork to set next to their paperwork. It's all paper.
I've always said it myself.
And we don't.
So we need your paperwork.
Listen, we don't engage in any independent process or event that can be construed as national.
Okay,
but what I'm saying is, hold on. This is really serious. What I'm saying is, I'm not talking about getting land and territory right now. What I'm saying is that if we can go through a process together, the inputs are you as an individual and you as a person who lives in a local community. That's the inputs. If we can take all the local communities, all the inputs, and put them in a blender, the process is you hit the button and it mixes everything. We have to come up with some process that results in a input, process, output, in an output that says this is the collective will, the collective result. This is all of those parts put together and held together by some kind of glue, right? So we haven't gone through a process like that. Now, this country, the United States, goes through that process every 4 years. This is why it's called your civic duty. There's a reason why that process is important. And there's a reason why, contrary to public opinion, they haven't been trying to prevent us from voting. They want Black people to vote. They've only tried to prevent certain Black people from voting because of the civil war that white people have, meaning this white group doesn't want this group of Black people to vote because they're going to vote for the opposition. So what they want is they want Black people to vote because they need this was the question I wanted to ask Barbara. What exactly is a vote? What is the transaction that is happening in the voting process? The transaction that is happening is characterized by consent. So then you have to ask, what is consent? You are giving your own authority or power and you are transferring it to someone else. That is what the voting process is. This is why they want people to vote, because the more people that transfer that power, the more authority they have to do whatever they want to do.
Okay. So
said they don't work for us. They can lie. They serve the party, and the party is a committee within the corporation. So once they get the vote from you, they no longer have a connection to you. They, contrary to popular miseducation, once they get your vote and they get into office, they have nothing to do with you. Nothing. This is about, you have to understand the political process. And I'm saying, even if you went to law school, this is how I was going to bust the lawyer out. If you went to law school and you can't explain to me maritime admiral law, if you can't explain to me a bunch of these legal concepts, what those law schools do is they don't train you on how to understand the system so that you could have your own. They train you on how to what? Support that system. So none of us, except for the fringe elements who are talking like this, none of us really have the education needed to actually be leading our people when it comes to voting matters and legal matters.
Okay. Chief, go on ahead and then I'm gonna give my thought.
Sheepaway made a statement that our citizenship or offer of citizenship wasn't corrected, but I do believe that was the whole point of the 15th Amendment, to correct the fact that before there was no status of citizenship or any rights to be given to the enslaved Africans. So I believe the 15th Amendment, whether you agree with it or not, was the law that was put into the Bill of Rights, that was added to the Constitution.
Oh, wait, let finish.
That
understand jurisdiction. Free people are not subjects of a foreign entity. As emancipated ancestors, free people, the United States has no jurisdiction over the emancipated. So whatever laws they pass have no bearing on the emancipated unless the emancipated choose, make an informed consent to say, we want to become a part of your jurisdiction. We want to assume both the rights and obligations. They impose rights and obligations.
Hold on. Okay. I got to jump in because Ambassador, are you free Friday?
Yes.
What's good? Yeah. What's going on?
Thanks, saying bad time. Okay, because we're gonna have to cut this short because.
Yeah, your job. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so engaged.
To any simple point. Like it's at this point, it's like talking to somebody and you know you got to go. You about damn near running late, and you're trying to find that opening to be like, all right, I'm gonna holler at you.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go with that.
All right. So yes, that was my fault. Yeah,
I
was about to like, yo, I gotta, because it's so. I just like this conversation. Yeah, because people got jobs and I'm on leave, so. I apologize for that. Go ahead, Beast.
Can everybody give closing statements? Can we get a closing statement?
Yeah, we will. We will.
Get a closing statement. Seaway came loaded, and I really want to hear Teacher's yes. So if she's able to do it Friday,
yes,
ain't no debate going on. No, we could definitely run this back and give her a chance to jump in.
Yeah, I sent her.
Yeah,
I sent her a affirmative question.
A constitutional legal scholar. My understanding is her background is family law, so she's not going to have the answers to this, and the answers that she was trained to have didn't never put her in this. We need a black constitutional legal scholar.
Well,
task on you. Find one and bring them on the show.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, but I
work on another.
But I will still want her to be on the show if she does have expertise in the voting, and not to make her run the polls. She's going to be on. But let's go ahead and jump into the final thoughts. First of all, Ambassador Prince Michael, thank you for tuning in, being part of the show. Can't wait to see you on Friday. So let's go ahead and jump on it. Usually I'd be, thank you, but I can't. So let's go.
Yeah.
First of all, for my final thought, y'all suck. I can't stand y'all right now. Not to my guests, but the other three. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I did not have not one chance to at least give my thought or give my views. I only did a few times, and that was about it. Beast Johnson was the translator. T said, she had her points, and then Seepaway, all of just took over. Like, I'm just gonna say what I'm have to say and just gonna say it. It's like, damn. And then you got I guess Ambassador Prince, he was just sitting there patiently, and then he said his thing. But then again, this is one of the great times for me being a host where I can just, I could just sit back and I could just hear other people's thoughts and hear everybody's views and everything. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't get twisted. Does this show get tense? Yes, it does. If you've been rocking with us the long way, you know that Mr. Rowe and freaking Seepaway are just like, they're like, what fire and ice. But we get to the solutions on the show. I believe if we all agreed on the show, we wouldn't have as many people that tune in. So I still encourage other people with different mindsets to come on the show. I encourage you, or if you know somebody that has not been heard, that needs to be heard, that need to be listened to, you have a platform you can come to. So as a host, I learn a lot of stuff. A lot of hosts don't even admit that. They just basically they moderate, they give questions, they give their points of views, but none of them never admit, maybe once in a blue moon, that they learned something. I'm here to tell you I learned something every show. And so I appreciate this panel. I appreciate the guests that come on this show. And this one was another great show. So tune in on Friday because this is going to continue. First of all, Teach, I hope you don't come on here and apologize for technical difficulties. I take responsibility for that. So we good to hear Barbara, Miss James on the show. Hopefully Friday she will actually be on the show. But other than that, y'all have a good night. My guest, the floor is yours.
Okay. My closing thoughts. Oh, let me turn my camera sideways. Sorry. I just want to leave our people with a vocabulary word. It's called legal personality. Legal personality. Legal personality is what gives you the capability of having rights and obligations, like obligations, legal obligations, right? When you enter into a contract, you're basically defining the obligations between two or more parties, right? Black Americans do not have legal personality. So I don't know if it's ever been declared before, but I'm officially declaring a legal crisis in the Black community. The crisis is Black people do not have legal personality. That means in the law, in the realms of law, we don't even exist on the international stage. We don't even exist. So there's no even point in us even talking no more. Let's not even wake up tomorrow. We're not even here. We're not even here. You know, like Chadwick Boseman said, rest in peace, rest in power, rise in power. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm not here. We're not here. Black, we're not here. We need legal personality. That is what gives, like when you register a company, let's use an example. When you register a company, that company is like you're giving it legal personality, you know what I'm saying, or it has legal personality. We got to do that as Black people, and the way we do that is by having an election. We have to have an election. We got to have a vehicle, like an organization, or like the term, use the sixth. Fortunately, all the presidents in Africa came together and they created an entity called the Sixth Region of the African Union that gives us the opportunity. We can piggyback off of that Sixth Region definition and the African diaspora definition to start giving ourselves a platform for legal personality. That way we can meet with another country and start saying, hey, we're going to obligate ourselves to an agreement with you that if you do this, we'll do that. Or if you do that, or if we do this, we want y'all to do that. Legal personality. Look it up. Google it. Legal personality, and look up full powers. We need to give somebody full powers to represent our entity that has legal personality to interact on our behalf on the international stage, which means right here in America, that means when we go and meet with the White House, that is an international meeting. We're not leaving the country to go nowhere, but it's still international obligations and international discussions that we need to have with other communities, because every other community on the planet has legal personality. That's all I want to say.
Let me try to find a way to crystallize this, okay? You have a rapist, grabs you and seizes you and forces you to have sex against your will. That's called the crime of rape. Now, if that same person grabs you and forces you to have sex, but you consent, then it's not a crime. You're consenting. This issue of consent, ask yourself, be honest. When have you seriously had a discussion with your homeboy or homegirl and seriously talked about whether or not you consent to the United States government? When have you really talked about this and studied this and came to a resolute, I consent, I want this government to have authority over me, and I want to abide by its laws, rules, and regulations, or I don't. The vast majority of us were birthed from the watery canal of our mother's womb. We were a physical thing that came into this world and was transferred into a jurisdiction that exists on paper. That's like a spell cast upon us. So if you just truly ask yourself, with the current government in America, and with the candidates that they're putting up, and with the lack of justice, that even when we protest, even when we march and we do everything lawful and legal, and they still, like they did in Louisville, the attorney general manipulates the justice process and we can get no justice. Just be honest. Do you consent to another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 100 years, 265 years? Do you consent for you and your children and all your posterity for the next 400 years? Do you consent to allowing this government and these people in this jurisdiction to have the authority over you? And if your honest answer is no, then we can teach you what to do about it. And we can help you, all of us, go through the process where we can refuse to consent, withhold our consent, and by doing that, we delegitimize wholesale their claim of authority over us. Now, that's not the end of the game. There's still a lot more that we have to do to defend ourselves in this world. But if we don't ever get to the issue of consent to be governed, and what happened when they took us from being, when they took your ancestor who was a free human person and made them chattel, which is a legal term meaning property, and then set up a whole system of laws where now you are their property, and we still are under those laws. You just don't know if you haven't studied it. Our first and primary goal now should be getting out from under that condition. That's my final word.
The survival of the human body is achieved through the collaboration of all of your organs and central nerves. It takes the brain along with the nerves, along with your lungs, your pancreas, your small intestine, your kidneys, all these random glands that many people cannot pronounce. The point being, that daily success is not achieved by one means. Yes, if your heart stops, you don't live. Same could go for your brain or your lungs or any other random organ or gland in your body. So for us to have this true success, we all need to come together and understand that the success will come from a variety of different avenues and facets. Like the ambassador said, you got to get that legal personality. Now, to achieve that legal personality and to truly understand the concepts that are being preached and being showcased today, you got to learn that legalese. And legalese is just the words used in a law-abiding manner in order to achieve a goal through the means of the current laws established. Once you know these words, you start to understand how things are actually done. And you want to focus on transactions when it comes to legalese, then you'll understand the concepts of birth and a birth certificate and consent being a form of transaction, because the United States does run itself as a corporation. So it does see its citizens as either workers with an ID badge to clock your hours and your time, or as a product with a shelf life and an insurance policy. Learning that legalese develops your legal personality, no matter your passion, your curiosity, or your fascination. My legal personality lies more within the realms of musical and entertainment law. That's my passion and my profession. I make sure that any contract put in front of me or even discussed around me is something that's to my benefit. And the second they say something that I know means something else, conversation's dead. Ain't no money there. So definitely start studying and educating yourself on the true definition of words and legal words that apply to transactions. And you'll definitely be able to get woke and understand how your vote does have power, no matter how you use it. And I'll leave the floor.
Good evening. That was very intense discussion. And I want to leave you with this. In order to move forward, you must know who you are, what you are, the strength and the weakness of your character. Because these are the foundational things that will prove you when a challenge is put before you. And right now, I feel like Professor O. I feel like him in his status of seeing hope where hopelessness dwells. Life for us as African Americans right here and right now, we're freer than our ancestors. We have more access to resources than our ancestors did. So if I was to call my ancestor into this conversation, what would they say? So I think about their perspective. And if they look from where they were and where we are, they may ask us, how come you have not done more? And we can say, oh, because of the system, because of this, and because of that. And they will say that's simply a challenge. If it was Professor O, they said, we have tribalism in our country. We have parties in our country. The system is just a challenge for you to overcome. And that's what we must do. Overcome, design your plan, and implement it to the best of your ability. Take joys. You only have one life. Live that life. Create a legacy for yourself and your children. Take the power in your immediate community and feel empowered. And do something in your own community. On the international level, the major weakness that the residents of the United States of America have is that these 47 million Blacks do not have sovereignty. 1, 2, they do not have an army. And 3, they have the ability to raise money, but we don't have that vehicle to raise money. And this is what the African Union says is the weakness for the United States. Now, that same weakness is not given to Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, or Suriname because they are sovereign states and they have access to resources, they have access to finances, and they have access to a military. So in any type of organization, and this is to speak to what Donnell said, we don't have a military. If Tulsa, Oklahoma had a standing army at the time or men ready to fight, they probably could have saved their town. Same thing with Rosewood and the others. So if you get your 2 square miles and put your 150 people in it, of those 150, at least 100 of them should be military trained. And that is my final thought. I say Kwaheri, Yakukaona, goodbye until we meet again.
And that we shall do. Let me go on ahead and say thank you to all my panel, also to our special guest, Ambassador Prince Michael. That's an incredible name, by the way. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a conversation that we're going to continue on Friday. And y'all know what I'm about to ask. Are y'all able to tune in? Friday, come on in. All right. Ambassador Prince Michael, you will be able to be here on Friday?
Yeah. What time? What time are we talking?
Same time as last time.
Same time. Okay.
Yeah, same time. And then also, I want to extend the invitation like I do with all the guests. You're welcome on the show at any time. Just give me a heads up, or Superway would tell me like, hey, Michael wanted to be back on the show. I'm like, cool. So you are always welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we happy to have you. And then also,
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the information and the perspectives that came out. You know, I really did.
You see, there was no name called.
Ambassador Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the name of that incense that you're burning?
This is frankincense. This is frankincense.
Frankincense. Okay. All right. All right.
Speaking of sense,
bring peace.
You know what?
Bring some peaceful resolution.
Yeah. You know, quietly. My silent protest. My silent protest.
We didn't properly. I didn't properly, and we didn't properly introduce Ambassador Prince Michael. So we in the audience still don't know a whole lot about him. But this young brother has done some really amazing things, and on Friday. Hopefully he get a chance to talk about them.
Oh yeah,
I did want to just put it out there that there is a brilliant landmark legal case that he has filed that has transformed the arguments that we are making to the United States about our condition. If you go to his website, diplomatday.com.
Yeah, diplomatday.com.
If you go to diplomatday.com, there's a link that everybody should check out that talks about how we have been made, we were made property, physical property as chattel, but there is also intellectual property, right, that was created, that the 13th Amendment abolished the physical property, but the intellectual property rights are still in existence, meaning they literally took human beings, our ancestors, and created a new product called a slave. The intellectual property rights attendant to that process is still governing our experience now. And this is a whole new field of legal theory and education applied to us directly. It gives us a new tool, new weapons of attack, new understanding. This is the brother who conceptualized and put it all together.
All right.
So,
okay.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, thank you. Hopefully, when we come on the show, that you can elaborate more on that, Ambassador Prince Michael. But first of all, thank our sponsor, Real Cheddar Boy Popcorn.com. Once again, Real Cheddar Boy Popcorn.com. Once again, Mr. Jones, congratulations on getting your own store. Congratulations. Hopefully, you're watching this. We're still thinking about you, and you need to bring your ass back on the show too, as well. Also, don't forget to help support the show. Go visit our shop. It's strolling at the bottom. Like our boy McCary, he getting everything 50% off. So
you can too.
So don't forget to shop. Cut right here to help support the show, and then also donate. Everything helps. We don't want you to donate your whole entire life savings. No, $1 can go a long way. $3 can go. So just help us out. But other than that, another great show. Can't wait till Friday. I definitely can't wait till Friday. And thank y'all for tuning in. Another great inspiring show. As for myself, your host, Donella Monte Morris, Anita Joe, aka Teach, Beast Johnson, Seep Away, and then our special guest who will be back on Friday, Ambassador Prince Michael, and then also Barbara James, where she was in for the opening statements. Thank y'all for tuning in. We're outro. Thank y'all so very much. Once again, salute to my panel. Thank y'all. Y'all all have a good night. Stay safe. Once again, there's a disease out there. Please put on the damn mask. And I'm about to see the highlights of this freaking debate. Catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
Good night.